this evening I want to touch on a topic which may be valuable for some of you, perhaps for others not. Please raise your hand if you came into Krishna consciousness from a Christian background. Christian background. Your family, before, culture, everything. So it's very important to understand the relationship between Krishna consciousness and Christianity. One's heart should not be divided because there is only one Dharma, there is only one religion. That religion is, that Jaiva Dharma, the religion of every soul, is Prem, love for God. It is the only religion. But due to the influence of the gunas, passion and ignorance in this world, that one undivided religion of every soul becomes diffracted and mixed with material motivations. Due to historical processes, it takes on different forms and becomes buried in so many elements of a society. The paraphernalia of particular cultures and places and languages. But in the heart of it, unpolluted and undiluted, religion is one, Dharma is one. Only how the soul can love God. So this year, 2015, is the 500th anniversary of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Vrindavan. And this year is also the 500th anniversary of the birth of Saint Teresa of Avila. So some of you were with me. Madhu Mangal and Brunella, Swarnalata. Oh, you missed that last time, Madhav Prabhu. Some were with me. Just a few weeks ago, we had a very wonderful opportunity to go to the city of Avila in Spain, the birthplace of Saint Teresa, and make an interfaith program there with some devotees of Saint Teresa to discuss, to celebrate the 500th anniversary of her birth. It was organized in conjunction with the cathedral there. The relationship between Vedic culture and Christianity, particularly as expressed by Saint Teresa. So I hope that from this discussion, a broadness of heart can be established by which we can feel truly a brotherhood and sisterhood with all the jivas, all the people of the world, knowing that Dharma is one. So when we came to Avila, I must admit I was very impressed with this place. It's a very ancient city with walls about 1,000 years old, all the way around. It's very fortified like a castle. And when you go inside, all the streets, every stone in the whole town is very ancient. And many thousands of people come there only to take shelter and discover about the path of contemplation. The contemplative path of devotion to God. The path of the quietness of the senses and the mind. The path of inner reflection to search out God and develop love for God. That was outlined in the life and the writings of Saint Teresa. So this evening I want to share with you some of the elements of the lecture that we gave there. First of all, we should know that human beings, they feel alienated from each other. They have a sectarian spirit. Sometimes the Hindus don't feel connection with the Christians, or the Christians don't feel connection with Muslims, or Muslims with Buddhists, and so on, like this. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, first he analyzed what is it that separates us all, what separates the different communities from each other. So he identified 3 components of alienation. The first one is called the visual component of alienation. That we look different. You know? we look different. The Muslims, they grow a beard and they shave off the moustache. To be opposite from the Hindus, who shave off this part and grow a moustache. So, I am dressed in this dhoti and kurta and chadar. So someone who is from another culture will feel alienated. This is not my style. This is not my religion. Or what have you. So first, when we see each other, different color of skin, different type of dress, different type of architecture in our cities and so on, then we feel, oh, this is not my... I am separate from this. I feel alienated from this. So the first component of alienation is visual. The second component is ritual. Ritual. That means that in the various religious traditions, the way that they express their reverence to God is different. For example, in the Christian church, then they'll tell, oh, now we should pray. And then they kneel down. But the Muslims, they'll bend all the way down to the floor. If you go into a Christian church, you'll have to remove your hat. But if you go into a Sikh Gurudwara, they will not let you in unless you have a hat. So they have a big pile of hats by the door, just in case you come without one. They give you a hat. You have to cover your head before you go in. Right? So it's totally different, right? Wrong. It's not. Each one is a ritual or a way of expressing reverence to God. Only the way the reverence is expressed is different. But the essential core of expression of reverence is the same. You know, when a Christian couple get married, they have to walk in a straight line down the aisle. But when Hindu couple get married, they have to walk around in circles around the fire. So these are ritual components that make us feel different. So the Konishta Adhikaris, that means the neophyte devotees whose faith isn't strong, they cannot overcome the visual component of alienation. If someone looks different, they're different. If someone's ritual is different, they're different. And if their doctrine is different, then that's the final proof that this soul is not going to God. So, the neophyte cannot reconcile. But the Madhyam Adhikari, one who has firm faith, they can easily see through the visual differences. They see someone's visually different, but they say, oh, the heart is same. They can easily overcome the ritualistic component of alienation. Oh, he's doing it in a different way, but the feeling is the same. But the Madhyam Adhikari, it's very difficult for him to overcome the final component of alienation. That is the doctrinal component. Difference in doctrine. Very difficult. So we gave an example. You can see in Christianity, they have a doctrine that you are born. When you are born, that's the beginning of your life. And when you die, that's the end. Only one life. But what is our doctrine, our understanding? No, we have lived before. And we can be born again in this world. Again and again, the soul is on a journey. You see. In Christianity, there is a doctrine called original sin. Original sin. That is that at the beginning of the creation, Adam and Eve, they had a spirit of disobedience to God. And since that disobedience of God, the character of the human soul was broken. And everyone who was born after that is born with a sinful nature. Like this. This is the idea of original sin. So even a child who's born right now is sinful. This is the philosophy. Now, even though the doctrine of reincarnation and the doctrine of original sin is apparently completely different, on a deeper level, it's exactly the same. Why? Because a soul who is taking birth in this world is born with the sins of, it seems like someone else, but really it's their own. when we're born into this world, we come into this world carrying the sanskars, the impressions of so many worldly activities and desires, which will force us to become entangled in the world and be indifferent to God. And therefore, even though the doctrine of original sin and the doctrine of reincarnation superficially seem different, on a deeper level, they carry the same import. That the very fact that we are born means that we are contaminated and under the control of the impious activity. And so the result of both ideas is that one should become very humble and pray for mercy. You see? So the action which is the result of both ideas is the same, even though there is some difference or superficial difference in the doctrine itself. So in this way, we should try to reconcile. The Madhyam Adhikari cannot reconcile, but once the Shakti of devotion enters into the heart of a devotee and he comes into Ruchi, then Shastri Yukti Sunipun Dridha Shadava Yar Say Uttamadhikari Jagata Nishta. The faith is steady, and also one can reconcile all the differences. You see? So when I was saying this, then the lady who was there to give a speech about Saint Teresa, she was a devotee of Teresa and serving in that monastery, then she began to cry. Seeing that there's no difference. She said, this is the happiest day of my life. Today I have realization. Never before in my life I have had. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, my dear brothers, don't quarrel with each other over doctrinal issues, but rather try to see how you can enter into samadhi, trance. Because in the state of trance, there will be a direct realization. And in that realization, then everything, all differences will be reconciled. Therefore, the Yuga Dharma is Nam Sankirtan. Whatever is your opinion, let it be. But let's come together and chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now we want to compare something. The life and teachings of Saint Teresa and Rupa Goswami. Saint Teresa, she wrote in her biography that when she was a child, she was very conflicted. Why? Because her father was a very strict and religious person. And her father used to say, tell her, always tell the truth. This is in the Vedas also. Satyam Vada, speak the truth. But on the other hand, her mother was a good lady, but she liked to read the mundane literatures, romantic novels. And her husband never approved of this. So secretly she would get some romantic literature and hide it somewhere. So when Teresa, as a child, she saw her mother reading this, her mother told her, shh, don't tell your father. So she was getting conflicting messages from the mother and father. The father was telling her, always tell the truth. The mother was saying, don't tell this. So she grew up with a conflicting morality. As she became a teenager, when she was about 14, she liked very much to flirt with boys. She was very witty, very clever, and she could entertain others and converse with them. She never became physically close, but only the feeling in the heart, the happiness of flirting with the opposite sex, she relished it so much. So seeing this, her father put her in a convent school. And when she went to the convent school, she said, I felt great relief to be in a very strict convent under the control of the nuns who were there. Why? Because compared to my father, they were more relaxed. My father was more strict. So to be with them, it was a relief. So as she was growing up, somehow or other, a certain sincerity of purpose came to her. And she thought, really, I want to know God. I want to realize God. And she was noticing that in the convent, it was somewhat lax. Young men from outside used to come inside and talk with the ladies who were staying in the convent. The nuns, they were also combing their hair nicely and wearing some jewelry. They used to get together and spend a lot of time gossiping. And when she read the scriptures and she saw what was going on around her, she felt that actually this is not the path. This is not the path. Especially talking too much is completely destructive. Our Raghunath Das Goswami said, Asadvarta vesya visrijamati sarvasva harani. Oh my dear mind, give up the talking all the time about the latest news and what is going on. Why? Because sarvasva harani, it steals away mati. Mati means the ability to contemplate, the ability to reflect, the ability to have a profound thoughts is completely stolen by the chattering all the time. One very famous monk, Thomas à Kempis, he said, why do we talk all the time with people? Why? Because our heart feels empty. And instead of seeking consolation in a conversation with God, we seek consolation outside in the world. To get relief from our emptiness, we go and we try to talk to someone. And we talk and talk and talk. But it is very rare that it occurs that when the conversation is over and we go away, that we feel better. But we feel we have lost something. We go away feeling that our spiritual awareness and spiritual consciousness has somehow evaporated. So, Rupa Goswami's first teaching, Vacho Vegam. Be very, very economical with your words. And you will see that from this, another state, a profound state of thoughtfulness will arise. So, there are very beautiful parallels between the psychology of devotion written by Teresa de Avila and our psychology of devotion described by our saints in the Vedic tradition. Perhaps you know that in the Srimad Bhagavatam it's said that your buddhi has so many vrittis, so many waves. It has a wave of imagination, kalpana. It has a wave of smriti, memory. It has a wave of discrimination. And you also have your will. So in the same way, Saint Teresa identified all these thought patterns, these waves within. And she discussed that there are 4 degrees of absorption in the path of contemplation. You can say the path of bhajan, if you like it. So she called the first one the mental prayer. The mental prayer. The second one she called the prayer of quiet. The prayer of quiet, peacefulness. Then the next one was called the devotion of union. And the last one, the devotion of ecstasy. Now what is the difference between these 4 stages? They don't precisely correspond to what Rupa Goswami has given, but it's another description of the same thing. The same things can be described in slightly different ways. And both descriptions shed light on the reality of the object that we're discussing. So the first one is the mental prayer. That is, you have not discovered the depths of your own soul and understanding. We're on the mental platform, just an ordinary mind. But we turn towards prayer. In that state, the mental prayer, she said one prays and remembers the passion of Christ. One remembers the passion of Christ. And one performs a penitence and remembers the penitence of the saints, the austerities that they have performed. So, I'm sure that some of you are aware of the Passion of Christ. Now, the reason for remembering this is because the mind is very frivolous. Frivolous. So many just useless, idle things for amusement and entertainment come into the mind. Recently I was in Torino, and there I visited the art gallery in Torino. So there were very ancient paintings, and one painting, it was called The Follies of Man. The follies of man, the frivolity of man. And it was just a picture of toys, footballs, clubs for playing ball games, different types of musical instruments, playing cards, dice, like this, horses, and it was all kind of things. How human beings amuse themselves. Today we could throw in TV, Xbox, iPad, you can throw in all the things which we try to entertain ourselves with in the external world. So the mind is vibrating with so many frivolous things. How does it become sober? How does it become grave? So Saint Teresa, she said, oh, you remember the Passion of Christ. Christ, he was pure and devoted to God, and only had within his heart the desire to benefit everyone. But what happened? He was arrested for no good reason and put in jail. And then the Pontius Pilate, he decided he would release a prisoner. And there were crowds of people there, and he brought Jesus and one evil, dark criminal, Barabbas. And he said to the crowds of people, who should I release? Who should I release? And who did the crowd want to be released? Release Barabbas! Like this. So what is this? A pure-hearted person who cares about everyone, but how does the world respond to him? All go against him, criticize in a completely heartless way. They don't understand him. When we contemplate this, this is the real path of spiritual life. It is like this. Difficulties will come. The worldly people may turn against you. So how sad that a pure person and compassionate person was condemned for no reason. Oh, then he was stripped of his cloth, humiliated in public. He was beaten again and again, mercilessly and viciously. He was made to carry his own cross, carry through the street the very instrument of his death, in front of everyone, falling to the ground again and again, and forced to get up again. So there are so many stages of the Passion. And finally, he was crucified in front of his mother. Just think of it. What will happen? At once all the frivolity of the mind goes away. Where is the frivolous nature of the mind? When we consider this sacrifice. In our culture as well, we remember the pastimes of Srila Haridas Thakur. It was the same thing. He was arrested. Said, you are a Muslim, why are you chanting the name of the Hindu God? Haridas Thakur said, there is only one God. And every single person is worshipping the same God, in the way that God in their heart inspires them to worship Him. So who are we to quarrel? You are inspired by God to worship in this way, someone else is inspired by the same God to worship in a different way. Haridas Thakur spoke like this. But still he was sentenced to be beaten to death in 22 marketplaces. He was dragged through the streets and whipped mercilessly. His bones were broken. His skin was broken. He was covered in blood. And finally, when he became unconscious, his body was thrown in the Ganges, which in their culture is complete disrespect. You have to bury a dead body, but to throw him in the river is the utmost disrespect in that culture of the Kazi, Chand Kazi. So, when we remember the lives of our saints, how they were doing back, Krishna Chandra Prabhu was describing the Brahmin who was chanting Harinam, but he had leprosy. He had worms which were eating his body. And when he moved, sometimes a worm would fall out from the wound. And he would pick up the worm and say, I am sorry. And put him back in the hole. So he didn't want to deprive him of his livelihood, of his home, and of his food, which was his own body. When we think of our 6 Goswamis, Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Nati Vikala, they utilized every moment of their time in bowing down, singing songs, chanting Harinam. They gave up sleeping, they conquered over eating, and all sense gratification. Sanatan Goswami drank water in the jungle, and it was contaminated with bacteria. He became covered in sores. But never at any moment did he criticize the Lord. Never at any moment did his devotion slacken. He thought, this is my fault. Tatenu kampam susamikshamani. So, in the Christian tradition, remembering the sacrifice of Christ, or in the Vedic tradition, remembering the lives of the saints, how they suffered. Then, this is the first stage. So this is called, by Saint Teresa, the mental prayer, and it leads to the prayer of quiet. When the frivolous nature of the mind has subsided, and now one is in a state of great peacefulness. So she said, in that state, your will, your independent will, becomes lost in the will of God. So this is what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying in the song, Atmanivedan. Toma ichamato, sabachastakori, toma ichamato. All of my endeavors now have become one with your will. So in that first stage, that is the Sharanagati has become complete, Nishta has come. In the stage of Nishta, then your will and the will of God have become one. Atmanivedan. But she described that the power of reason, the memory and the imagination still have some independence. So they're still moving around. You see? So the devotee in the stage of Nishta, though his faith is strong, because his reason hasn't become blended with the reason, the divine reason of God, therefore, Shastri Yukti Nahi Jani Dridasharavan. He's got strong faith, but he hasn't been able to reconcile all the doctrinal differences. Why? Because the reason hasn't come under the control of the divine energy of the Lord. You see? So that is the state of the prayer of quiet. The mind has become peaceful. The will is no longer independent. It is merged with the will of God, but reason, memory and imagination are still moving a little bit to in their own accord. So then, the next stage is called the devotion of union. In that stage, the reason, the will was folded into the will of God, then the reason becomes folded into the reason of God also. So now all the profound mysteries of the scripture and of life experience, everything becomes explained from inside by the will of God, as Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. To those who are always dedicated to serving me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So then, in the fourth stage, that is called the devotion of ecstasy. So the devotion of ecstasy, in that stage, now, the will is folded into the will of God. The reason is folded into the will of God. The imagination is folded into the will of God. And the memory also is folded into the will of God. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that Tomaya Sevaya Bulinu Sakala Purva Itihasa Bulinu Sakala Tomaya Sevaya Tari. Oh my Lord, I forgot everything of the past. Because the memory has been taken by the internal potency, and now only thoughts of Krishna's name, form, qualities and pastimes are naturally flowing in the mind. That is called the devotion of ecstasy. Now, Saint Teresa, can you see the connections between her internal experience and the stages of bhakti and the vrittis of the chitta vrittis described in the Shastra? What difference is there? I ask you, what difference is there? There can be a difference in rasa, but the tattvas, the realities are the same. So, when Saint Teresa came into the state of ecstasy, then she would tremble. Tears would flow from her eyes. She couldn't stop crying. Her hairs would stand on end. These are the sattvic bhavs. Even when she used to go to the chapel for the communion, when they were offering the wine and the bread and saying, "Oh my Lord Jesus, this is your blood that you shed for us. And this is your body that was broken." His body was beaten and broken. His body was broken for the benefit of all the people. That means that by taking that blood and imbibing that body of Christ, that we imbibe the spirit of sacrifice. That in the service of God, our bodies may be broken, our blood may be shed, but we have no care for our own happiness. But suffering is coming in the service of Krishna, I accept as the greatest pleasure. That spirit of devotion. So, when the prayers of the communion were being offered, she was in so much ecstasy, with eyes closed, and saying the prayers. She began to levitate and float into the air. Several times she was seen floating in the air, levitating in the ecstasy of the communion. So, at that time, she realized how this convent, this monastery is going on. This standard, this is not the standard by which we can progress. And she tried to make reforms. But as soon as she tried to speak the truth by saying, "Wait a minute, you are not following the rules and regulations of the previous saints. You are not following Vaidhi Bhakti. You will have to adopt some rules and regulations living in the convent. These certain habits, they are not conducive to spiritual advancement." Then what happened? Many turned against her. Even her superiors turned against her. One very senior monk came and told her that you are not inspired by God. These teachings which are coming to you are not coming from God. They're coming from Satan. Like this. Sometimes in her trance she would see Jesus and he would instruct her. Her superior told her, "That is not Jesus coming to you. It is Satan disguised as Jesus giving you this teaching." Like that. And he told her, "Next time if you see Jesus, you have to do the fig. This mudra is called the fig." It's very rude gesture. So he told her, if you'll see Jesus in you, then you go like this. Because it's Satan. So next time when she was in ecstasy and she saw Jesus, she is so simple, she followed what that monk had told her, like this. He said, but it didn't work, he didn't go away. What can I do? So many people, they turned against her, they criticized her, they wanted to throw her out. So then, she told in her biography at that time that so many problems were coming, many people were against her, and she was praying. And Jesus came to her, and she opened her heart. All have become my enemy, all are turning against me. And Jesus, she said, Jesus smiled and said, yes, this is how I treat my friends. So she said to Jesus, wow, you know that it's not a great wonder that you don't have a lot of friends. So then she said to him, but Venus, you only have a few friends. At least the friends you have, they should be good ones. They should be good friends. And then she became inspired to make her own convent. So she left that place and began to preach. And she collected very sincere souls and began to train them from the beginning without any bad habits. With the purity. And what is the real standard of spiritual life? The life of devotion, the life of contemplation, by which one can really go inside more and more deeply. Not overnight, not even in a few weeks or months, or not even in a few years, but gradually, by following the devotional path, surely the state of antarmukata, inward vision, will come, and the union. Bhakti yoga means the union of devotion. The union of devotion. So she began to do this. It's very important to understand what she has said. Her realization, Jesus said, this is how I treat my friends. Because that teaching is also in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasaham tadanugrami harisye tadanam shanai. Sri Krishna said, the first installment of my mercy is, I destroy everything in your life. Your family will turn against you. Your friends will turn against you. Society will turn against you. You will lose your money, your career, your reputation. All of these things. This problem. In this regard, I want to share one very beautiful essay written by my Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wrote an essay saying, who is an acharya? Who is an acharya? He said that many people think that the path of spiritual life is a bed of roses. It's all rainbows and unicorns, you know? It's all soft flowers and fuzzy feelings. Like that. He said, but the path of spiritual life is not like this. It is a path which is strewn with thorns. Jesus Christ had to wear a crown, but what was the crown made of? Thorns. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, the path of spiritual life is strewn with many thorns and difficulties. But an acharya is that person who he's not lazy and not interested in his own comfort, but he's ready to walk across that path of thorns and also to remove many of them so that others may follow him to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And he pointed out that all great personalities were attacked, they were vilified, they were criticized, like Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya Yadav Prakash, earlier in his life, his apparent guru, tried to kill him. His own god brothers conspired to kill him as well. Look at Prahlad Maharaj. A father always loves his son. But Prahlad Maharaj, even his own father tried to kill him. Haridas Thakur, Jesus Christ. And in the Christian culture, the Christian tradition, almost all of the saints were martyrs. Each saint is painted holding in his hands the very instruments by which he was killed. You know, like Saint Bartholomew has a knife in his hand because he was skinned alive. Saint Sebastian has so many swords through his body, and so on. So usually the saints are depicted with the very instruments by which they were martyred. So if God loves them so much, why did they have to undergo so much difficulty? No, this is God's love. It comes like this. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said that lazy persons who are interested in their own comfort never stand up and speak the truth to society, because this is the material world. In the material world there is envy everywhere, there is misconception everywhere, there is untruth everywhere. This is the plane of untruth. And so immediately when the truth appears, untruth sets about it. You can see Krishna Lila. Here, Krishna himself. Satyam Bratam, Satyaparam Trisatyam. Krishna himself is the embodiment of truth. But from the moment he was born, what happened? Putana, Shakatasur, Agasur, Trinavarta. From all directions, demons are coming to attack. So this is the sign. When the truth makes its appearance in the atmosphere of this material world, at once it is set upon by the forces of untruth, very viciously. And therefore, those who are lazy and those who are inclined to their own comfort and happiness, they don't stand up and speak tattva, siddhanta, because it's just too troublesome. It's too much of a botheration. Too much conflict and difficulty will come. Let's be comfortable. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, we cannot repay the great acharyas who have walked the true path of spiritual life in utter selflessness and self-sacrifice. And they have taken many of the slings and arrows that would be aimed at us and shown a path that we ourselves would not have been able to discover by ourselves. So here again, we see the parallel between the life history, experience and teaching of Saint Teresa and the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam, the lives of our acharyas. Even Srila Vishwanath Thakur, the most Rasik acharya of all, they tried to kill him, you know. Srila Vishwanath Thakur was teaching that the gopis of Vrindavan, when they come to this world, they're married to others and they have to meet with Krishna secretly. So persons accept it. We know that, it's written in the scripture. But when they go to the spiritual world, then they're with Krishna. That is the Swakiya mood, with Krishna. The Parakya mood is not eternal. But Vishwanath Thakur said, no, this mood is also eternal. And many people became against him. One day in the early morning, he was doing parikrama of the Vrindavan. And some philosophical opponents, they were hiding there and ready to jump out and kill him. But they waited, and he didn't come. Only they saw one very beautiful Kishori teenage girl was walking there. And they saw how charming she is. And they approached her. They said, oh Lali, where are you from? She said, I am from Yavat. And I am serving in the house of my Swamini's mother-in-law, Jatila, in Yavat, indicating the parakya, the service to Radhika when she's not married to Krishna. So they were astonished. Then all of a sudden, right before their eyes, that beautiful gopi transformed and Vishwanath Thakur was standing in front of them. Then they fell on the ground at the feet of Vishwanath Thakur. Please accept us as your disciples. Please forgive our offenses. So we see that all the great saints, they had to face difficulty. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was also attacked by the smarta Brahmins and the Prakrita Sahajas of the Navadvip town. They tried to kill him. And at that time, my Param Gurudev took Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur into the safety of a room, locked the door, and took his clothing and his danda and his spectacles and gave him his own white cloth and sent him away. So Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he looked very much like Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. He dressed up as Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and waited there for the crowd to come and kill him while his guru could escape. This is the path of devotion. It can go on about so many examples. Our Srila Prabhupada, your Guru Pada Padma, how many difficulties he underwent. In his old age, in India, distributing pamphlets in the hot sun, he was attacked by a bull who gored him, and he was knocked unconscious, lying in the street bleeding in his old age. He had 2 heart attacks as he came to America on the Jaladuta. So when we hear the lives of all the saints of the various traditions, we become grave, we become sober, the chitta becomes gradually avikaratvam, without frivolity, oscillation. So, though one should have a profound and grave heart, Saint Teresa said, "O my Lord, please save me from gloomy saints." Save me from the gloomy saints. It is not that in spiritual life you have to walk around with a long face all day. Spiritual life is very joyful. But it is not joyful being agitated by the frivolities and amusements of the physical world. It is joyful internally. And therefore, Sishi Gornitai. Parama Karuna Pahudui Jana Nitai Gaurachandra Saba Avatar Sarashiramani Kevala Ananda-Dham. The crest jewel of all incarnations, Gornitai, have brought this path which is not Karma Kanda, not Jnana Kanda, but Ananda Kanda. It's the path of Ananda, it's very, very joyful. So spiritual life should be joy, we should not think I'm very advanced if I'm depressed all the time. Look at this person smiling. He's obviously a neophyte. No, don't think like that. So Saint Teresa said, please save me from gloomy saints. She also said, I am not as afraid of Satan as I'm afraid of people who are afraid of Satan. What does it mean? If you're on the spiritual path, don't be always in anxiety that Satan or Maya will get you. This is not the path. Why? Because Maya or Satan, the darkness of illusion, ignorance, is always dispelled and cannot get entrance into a life of a person who always speaks the glory of God. In other words, you're saying, where Harikatha is flowing, then Maya cannot have an entrance. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Andaka Yaham Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Adika. Krishna is like the sun, and ignorance or Satan is like darkness. Where the sun is shining, the darkness cannot go there. Therefore, don't be in a state of always fear. Joyfully chant Hare Krishna, sing the holy names, and talk about Krishna, talk about Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. Speak about your spiritual master and parampara, and be happy in this. Another very deep teaching of Saint Teresa is that she compared spiritual life to gardening. It's very nice here in the ashram. Gardening. Taking care of a garden. And what did Caitanya Mahaprabhu say? Mali hoy se beech kare aropan, Shavana kirtana jale kare se chan. Caitanya Mahaprabhu directly taught Rupa Goswami, and we'll discuss it tomorrow. He said, become a gardener and plant the seed of the desire for Krishna service in your heart and very carefully water it every day, and it will grow. Pull out the weeds. Be attentive to pull out the weeds that may choke the creeper of devotion in the form of the duplicity, envy, the desire for recognition, all of these things. And protect your garden with a strong fence of sincere devotee association. So, at the very same time that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was giving this teaching, at the same time it appeared in the heart of Saint Teresa that spiritual life is like a garden. Has anyone done some gardening, taken care of plants before? It's very interesting because the plants, they have a life of their own. You cannot neglect them. You have to watch them all the time. It's a very delicate operation that needs full attention. So in the same way, we cannot neglect the examination of our conscience. We have to look what's going on in our garden of our heart. Really? Are some fragrant flowers growing there? Or is there some trash there? Did it become like a dump? with the bad smelling things. Anger, envy, criticism. Like that. You have to keep the garden clean. So, now it's becoming quite late, so I want to complete our discussion today with a deliberation on the topic of when our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition has an encounter with the Christian mystical tradition of contemplation, in what ways can they benefit each other? In what ways do we benefit from them? And in what ways will they benefit by the teachings of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami? So there are many points may be said, but I just like to note a few. The first one is that in modern society today, we see that the popularity of the Christian method of devotion is waning. Its popularity is going down. Many churches are closing and they're being turned into cinemas or whatever. So this is very sad. It's a very sad thing. I would like to see that every church throughout every country is full of kirtan. Srinvan subhadrani ratangapane janmani kamani chayani loke. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is said that you should loudly glorify God. Yani loke means, and you can do it in your local language. Everyone doesn't have to chant Hare Krishna if they don't feel in their own language, in German, in Italian, in French, in Spanish, but come together and sing the glories of God, because Kirtan is the Yuga Dharma. In other words, the atmosphere in this age is so contaminating. Tamna sandashito datra dustram nestitistatam kalim satwa haram pumsam karna dara ivanavam. When Shonika Rishi and the sages of Naimisharanya met Sutta Goswami and accepted him as their guru, they said, "Oh, great soul, I think that we have met your holiness by the divine will, by the will of providence, because we can accept you as captain for the ship to cross over the difficult ocean of Kali Yuga, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being." Now this is a fact. Even you may be a good person, but the atmosphere in society in Kali Yuga is such that it causes the degradation of even good people. So that degradation, it cannot be counteracted by a silent meditation. It cannot be counteracted by worshipping deities and so on. Though we may do these things. But the power of Kali Yuga can only be counteracted by a loud chanting of the names and glories of God. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When you loudly chant God's name, it's so invigorating. Then there's no possibility for the contamination, the atmosphere of Kali Yuga to enter into our life. I was very happy. I saw in Italy recently a big group of Christians and with guitars, and they were walking through the streets all singing the glories of God. Essentially Nagar Sankirtan in their style. So all people from all walks of life and all traditions, they must chant the holy names. Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam Eva Kevalam. There is no other way. So, in the modern time, atheism is spreading very rapidly everywhere. There's so much sophistry of the atheists explaining why there's no such thing as God, why there's no such thing as the soul. So, the Christian tradition can benefit very much from the tradition of Vedanta, from the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, because there, in a very reasonable and very rational way, the reality of the soul, the necessity of the existence of a conscious personal God has been established step by step. So the Christian tradition can benefit very much by a very careful study of Vedanta and the Sandarbhas, wherein all types of philosophy which are in opposition to the fully fledged theistic conception of life have been thoroughly undermined, eradicated, and dispelled. So that is the first thing. The second thing is that we see within the writings of the Christian mystics, there is a discussion of the cognitive aspect of spiritual life and the behavioral aspect of spiritual life. Cognitive aspect means a description of what's going on inside as you go through the various stages. And behavioral aspect means how does a person who's having those inner experiences, what are the symptoms in their behavior? But actually you can see in modern psychology is mainly divided into two parts, cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology. But that does not give you a complete understanding of spiritual life. Only the Vedas give us the third piece of the puzzle that makes everything make sense. And that is the ontological perspective. Ontology. That means the nature of the very substance of reality, the elements, and how they interact. So to get a perfectly clear understanding of spiritual life, we must have the description of the cognitive development, the behavioral development, and how they fit together in terms of the ontology. For example, we can describe how there's wrong behavior. But where is this wrong behavior coming from? The wrong cognition. You are thinking that you are this body. But the ontological perspective is that the chitta, the substance in which your consciousness is reflected, is oscillating, giving you the wrong cognitive impression, leading to the wrong behavior. Do you understand? When you have the ontological discussion of the tattvas, that is called tattva gyan, then you can understand why it is that we're having different cognitions. Someone has a tamasic cognition. You see? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, that is an ontological perspective. But the ontological perspective explains the cognitive perspective. A person influenced by tamagun has a particular cognition leading to a particular behavior. A person in rajagun passion, that means there's a passion in the chitta, then they have a particular view of the world. Just like a person in the mode of passion sees a beautiful young woman, and by his cognition he thinks, oh, very attractive, I want to touch, I want to taste, I want to enjoy. That is a cognition coming from Rajagun, like that. But a yogi who is in Sattvagun, the yogi looks and sees a beautiful young woman and says, oh, this is only the fat and blood wobbling around. It's disgusting. Krishna Chandra Prabhu knows the prayers of Shankaracharya. Right? How Shankaracharya described how to see the things of this world. Why? Because his mind is free from the ontological energy, Rajagun. He's looking and seeing what's really there. Some bones, some blood, some fat, some hair, fingernails, all kind of tied together in a bundle. Yeah? And he's situated, I am Atma, so there's no attraction there. So the cognition that comes from Sattva-gun leads to a behavior. The cognition that comes from Rajagun leads to a behavior. Yeah? And in Tamagun, who's in Tamagun? Like a wolf. A wolf in the forest sees a beautiful woman coming on and thinks, oh, food, breakfast. Delicious. I'd like to tear this whatever it is to pieces and chew it. Drink the blood, like this. So, the missing part in the discussion of Christian mysticism, the cognitive aspect is there, the behavioral aspect is there very beautifully, and sometimes the cognitive and behavioral aspects are described in more detail even than within our own tradition. This is true. You can benefit something. You can read some writings of Teresa de Avila, of Saint John, of Thomas à Kempis. So, the cognitive is there, the behavioral is there, but without the ontological. The general people cannot understand the reasoning why we have to practice in a particular way. Once I gave an interfaith program in Russia. So it was in a very beautiful library, the Bogolubov Library of the Arts. It's a beautiful place like a palace. So I was sitting here with one priest, completely in black, with a big long beard and a big cross, of the Orthodox faith. Behind us were two huge white grand pianos with gold embossed. It was a very spectacular place. So we are sitting, and the program was the audience will come and ask questions to both of us. The same question, but we'll give answers from our different perspectives of our different traditions. So it was a very wonderful program, very moving for me and for the priest also, and for all the people there. And afterwards, the priest told me, come with me, and took me in a private room. He sat down and he said, I'd like to invite you to come and stay at our monastery. I said, it would be a great honor. I'd love to stay and spend some time with you. And he said, so our program today was very nice. We should celebrate. And so one nun was with him, and he spoke to her something in Russian I couldn't understand. So then the nun came with a bag and put the bag down next to him. And then he pulled out 2 bottles. He said, this is very good. Finest imported Danish lager. Kronenberg. I don't know if you know this brand. So he put one bottle of beer in front of me and opened one for himself. I said, oh my dear friend, please excuse me. In our tradition, we don't take this. But I didn't stop him. I said, go ahead. So why? Because if we don't understand the ontology, the nature of the ingredients of the world around us, we will not be able to clearly understand what it is which is favorable, uplifting in our spiritual life, or what is bringing us down. Because our food, what we eat, what we drink, the clothes, the way that we dress, the way that we bathe, and all these things, they're affected by the gunas. So sattva gun is very supporting. The mode of goodness supports us in our spiritual life, but other gunas will bring us down. So this is one way that I suggested in which the Christian tradition could benefit by an exchange with the ontology of the Vedas. Another interesting point in regard to ontology is this. No one could explain why Saint Teresa was trembling, why she was crying, why she began to levitate into the air. But all of these things have been described by our Goswamis. You see? When the spiritual energy of bhakti enters into the heart, then it touches the pran. The pranic energy is moving, causing all the functions of the body to go on without conscious effort. So when the spiritual energy, Swarp Shakti, touches the pran, the life air moving in the body, then the pran moves around the body and begins to touch the various elements. And from the combination, when Swarp Shakti touches the elements of your body, different ecstatic symptoms appear. There are 8 prominent ecstatic symptoms: becoming stunned, perspiration, tears, trembling, fainting, and so on. The standing of the hairs. These are all ecstatic symptoms. So Srila Rupa Goswami has very carefully described, accurately, how the symptoms come about. When the energy of bhakti touches the earth in the body, then you become stunned, like a block of earth. When the energy of bhakti, carried by the pran, touches the water in your body, then you begin to cry. You cannot control it. When the Bhakti Shakti touches the fire in the body, then perspiration comes. And also Vaivarnya, your complexion changes colors. When the energy of Bhakti moving in the pram touches the ether, akash, space, then you faint. And when the pran touches the air, the element of air in the body, a slight touch will cause the hairs to stand on it. When the influence of the Bhakti Shakti, the power of devotion is stronger, a medium level, then not only the hairs stand on end, but you also begin to tremble. And when it becomes very intense, then the voice chokes and you cannot speak. So, in this way, the ecstasies of the Saint Teresa, which were not understood by her associates, they've been very clearly described in our Vedic scriptures. Now, I want to come on to just the last point, and that is, what can we benefit from the exchange with that tradition? Truly, I say that Saint Teresa has spoken about the daily practice of the examination of one's own conscience. This is very, very important. She's written a lot about this. All too often we see in our Gaudiya Vaishnava community a lot of activity, a lot of busyness, a lot of activities of devotional service, and they're all good. But it's necessary each and every single day to spend some time and make the examination of one's own conscience. To check one's motivation. And this is why Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has written Manashiksha. Manashiksha is essentially the examination of one's own conscience. My dear mind, are you being duplicitous? Duplicity is in the form of telling yourself, now I'm very advanced. Now I'm a pure devotee. This is duplicity. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami said that thinking of yourself as a great saint and very advanced in devotional life, this is like taking bath in donkey urine. So in the morning you wake up, you take a shower, and then you get a bucket of donkey urine, pour it over your head, and then come to the temple room. Haribol, Prabhu. Let's serve the Lord. So, this is it. And of course, Srila Raghunath Das Swami is giving a very graphic. It seems extreme, but it's not extreme. From the perspective of pristine purity and perfection of bhakti, really, the slightest duplicity is more contaminating than being soaked in donkey urine. So every day we have to take examination of our own conscience. Check to see if we are motivated by recognition from others, or do we simply want to act in such a way that our Gurudeva, our Acharyas and Krishna will be pleased, whether or not others know, or they see our service. If service can be done very secretly, that only Guru and Krishna knows, only God knows that you did it and no one else knew, oh then this love is very pure and beautiful. Even Krishna himself, he follows this teaching. One day, Krishna arranged to meet Radharani at a particular place in Vrindavan in the evening. But before going there, Krishna knew, oh, Radharani will come from Yavat and she will walk down this path. So Krishna went there first and he removed all the stones from the path, that Radhika will not step on any sharp stones with her soft lotus feet. Then he picked flowers and he sprinkled soft petals all over the path. So the lotus feet of Radhika, his beloved, would be stepping on the soft petals. And when he'd made the path smooth and decorated it beautifully, then Krishna took off his pitambar, he took off his cloth, and he walked away from the path backwards, wiping out his own footprints. So that no one, even Radhika, will ever know that it was he who decorated the path. This is praying, this is love. Even the object of your love doesn't have to know. You just have to do the seva. And the service itself, that pure love, is its own reward. So in this way, I think that as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we can learn something from Saint Teresa by spending at least a few moments, some minutes every day, making an examination of our own conscience. That is being attentive to our garden, that it's growing in a good way. Gaur Premanand.